romance is one of my favourite genre of books. So when I saw that these books were being released, I had to know, were they huge hits or disappointing misses? So in the lineup we have Second Chances, Radio Fix-Ups, Stolen Wishes, Fake Office Dating, and One Golden Summer. But which were new favourite authors and which were big old flops? Will I never get over this book? Will this book call out to me first time? Will I wish I had switched this book? Will I need to recover from this story? Will I have a golden summer with this book? Now, before we start, I have done a few nods to the books throughout the video. See if you can spot them all before the end. There are also universal nods for the general theme of romance. So first up, we have a second chance romance. What If I Never Get Over You by Paige Toon. First of all, I love the book cover and the sparklers on the edges. That's a nice touch. I love when they add interesting details like these. Ellie is solo travelling around Europe. She's feeling a little bit lonely, isolated, and she isn't sure whether she wants to carry on travelling like planned or just to go home. Then she meets Ash and they have a wonderful 3 days together, and she decides she wants to carry on interrailing with him. They arrange to meet up to continue their travels, but Ellie is a little bit late and Ash is nowhere to be seen. Fast forward 6 years later, and Ellie is starting a new job as a gardener for a big estate in Wales. And who does she bump into but the man she fell for all those years ago? So what were some of the good parts of the book? At the start of the book, I loved it. It truly encapsulates the holiday romance feel. You were really rooting for them to get together. At the start, their interactions together are really sweet, and I was kind of giddy reading it as I love the romance sweetness of it all. I am definitely a hopeless romantic, and them travelling together really ticked those boxes. I really liked the descriptions of the places that they travelled, and even when they got back to the UK. It really made me want to go there. And now here are some of the parts I didn't necessarily like in the book. When I realised they had only been in each other's company for 3 days, I was like, oh. It felt like those feelings were a little bit too deep for that length of time, to be honest. Please note there is some spice if that's not your thing in the story, and there are also trigger warnings for grief if that might affect you. I didn't really like how they interacted with each other sometimes, and that is especially towards the end of the book. I also really wasn't that keen on the ending of the book in general, to be honest. Here are some of my favourite quotes from What If I Never Get Over You? His eyes are like the same colour as the peached iced tea I've been drinking. They catch the sunlight too, and sparkle with it. Your eyes are ridiculous, he says with amusement. They're so big and blue. How can anyone ever say no to you when you look at them like that? When the sky darkens, I ask him to tell me about the stars and the planets, and I have a surreal feeling that I could listen to his voice for the rest of my life and it still wouldn't be long enough. I will do my summary and whether I think it's a hit or a miss towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. But before we move on, make sure you've got all the nods to the books. In addition, if you enjoy this style of video, please do let me know by liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Now next up, we have a radio fix-up. First Time Caller by BK Borison. First Time Caller is about a radio DJ called Aidan who presents a radio show called Heartstrings. He's sort of an agony uncle, love guru type. People ring up to ask for advice about their love woes, basically. The problem is, Aidan is a little bit jaded with love from hearing all the callers complain about their other halves, so he does become a little bit love avoidant himself. One day, a young girl calls up Aidan's show asking for advice, but for her mum, Lucy, and the interview goes viral. This is great news for the radio station, as they have been struggling to get listeners. So what they do is they get Lucy on the show, and everyone gets behind her adventures to try and find a new love. But does Aidan? Here are some of the parts I enjoyed in the book. Lucy is a hopeless romantic, just like me. I found her really identified with her. She wants to find a special kind of love. I really liked the friendships and the relationships in the book. I thought they were really sweet. Now, I'm not always a big fan of spice in books, but this one definitely got me a little bit hot under the collar. I loved that it was actually radio based. I thought the concept of that was actually really cool. I liked Lucy's job as a mechanic. I know it's not your usual gender stereotype, but there was something about it that really appealed to me. It made the book a lot more interesting for me. I actually really liked Aidan too, although there were some moments he needed to buck his ideas up, quite frankly. I liked that he was jaded at the start and the arc of his story in regards to that. Here are some of the parts I didn't necessarily enjoy within the book. I know spicy scenes aren't for everyone, and they are quite spicy in this book. They also use the C word, and I didn't need that. It's not one of my favourite words, to be honest. I found myself get quite emotional at some points in the book. I definitely identified with one of the situations, and it really got me here. Here are some of my favourite quotes from First Time Caller. I wish I had 2 emotional support cookies. But what's wrong with being a romantic? I can be a confident, independent woman and still want someone to hold my hand, to ask about my day. It's a good thing to want passion and excitement and care, attention and affection. I don't want to settle for anything less than that. Lucy frowns at me. Her face is so damn expressive. I wonder what it's like to walk around with your heart on your sleeve. Mine is buried so deep in my chest, I'm not sure I could find it if I wanted to. Before we move on, just check you've counted all the nods to the book. 3, 2, 1.
It would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
Now, the last 3 books were all released on the same day, but I could only get this one in the shops. So for me, I read next The Wish Switch by Lynn Painter. Emma Rockford has always known, through her family, that there is magic in a nearby secret wishing well. So Emma and her friends go to the well with their pre-thought out wishes, but disaster happens when Emma's wishes get knocked out of the way by nerdy kid Jackson. So will Emma's wishes still come true or not? What did I like about the book? Who doesn't like a wishing element in a book? I do. Plus it is suspenseful and exciting, seeing which wishes come true, and for who. I thought the friendship between Emma and Jackson was really sweet. I liked how the dynamics between Emma and her friends changed when the wishes started to come true. I thought that was very believable. And now onto the parts I didn't necessarily like. I don't know if this is my fault or not, but when I read the book description, maybe I didn't read it properly. Initially, when I looked it up before it was released, I didn't realise it's actually aimed at middle grade, so that's like 8 to 12 years old. I'm a little bit older than that. And boy, does it show in the book. For everyone who expected a similar vibe to Not Like the Movies, this is not it. It is quite silly in the magic aspect and quite immature in parts, obviously because of this. And I'm not sure you really could categorise the book as a romance, but for the age range, it is appropriate. I found some of the statuses of the wishes were left very ambiguous, and that felt like a really big letdown for me. I wanted to know what happened. Here are some of my favourite quotes from The Wish Switch. So it came to pass that each year, on the 4th day of the 4th month, for 444 fairy years, the lords granted 4 wishes to 4 Blinkonians. 4 golden stones, 4 wishes granted. I humbly request these 4 entreaties be granted. By the power of 4 on the forest floor, I seek to receive my wishes evermore. I'm going to go, he says slowly, pointing in the direction of the door as he smirked like I was a funny little weirdo. Because I'm not sure what's going on with you, and I feel like I'm in danger. Don't forget to see if you can find all the nods to the book. Now, on to a well-read author of mine, Cover Story by Mhairi McFarlane. Both Belle and Connor have recently joined a small newspaper in Manchester. Belle as a reporter, and Connor as an intern after he's had a career change. They don't see eye to eye, but when they have to pretend to be girlfriend and boyfriend for an undercover story, will the sparks fly? So, what did I like about the book? Obviously the trope is fake dating, and who doesn't love a bit of fake dating in a romance? They are fake dating for work. I really like the premise and the possibilities. The concept of being undercover too, to break a story, really added to the intrigue. And now some of the parts I didn't necessarily like in the book. I didn't connect with the characters. I didn't like how they both acted and treated each other, especially at the start. And especially Connor. As an intern, surely he'd be keen to make a good impression, right? I'm not a fan when characters assume that the other character instantly dislikes them for no good reason. It does feel really contrived, and there is quite a lot of that in this book, unfortunately. It's also a very, very slow burn. I didn't think the ending was overly satisfying, if I'm honest. Here are some of my favourite quotes from Cover Story. We should all hope to be worthy of a picture on someone's desk. If you're going to plant a knife in someone's back, don't warn them with loud footsteps. You could find the coded insult in absolutely anything I say, couldn't you? So on to the last book of the video. One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. Alice's grandmother is feeling a little bit down after she has broken her hip. So Alice decides to take her to Barry's Bay, where they both have some really happy memories from. When they get to the bay, Alice thinks she recognises the face of a man driving a boat on the lake. So what are some of the good parts of the book? I related to Alice's character and persona a lot. She's a bit introverted, but caring too. I liked how she was a photographer and also how it was incorporated into the story too. You seriously get the summer holiday vibes, and it definitely gets you in the holiday mood. This would be a great beach read. The descriptions of Barry's Bay in Ontario, Canada is so lovely. It honestly makes me want to go there, and fun fact, it is a real place the author has been. I love real life insights into where authors gather their inspiration from for stories. The tension and the romance is really sweet, and you do really want them to get together. I love the acts of service that Charlie does for Alice and her family. It's very romantic and very swoon-worthy. I love that as a love language. And now here are some of the parts I didn't necessarily like in the book. I found Charlie a little bit too cocky for me, especially at the start. I do understand why he was written that way though. Plus, who doesn't love a confident man? I wasn't a fan of some of the things that Charlie does. I won't say any more because it's a spoiler, but I would have wanted to read Every Summer After before if I had realised. No, this isn't a sequel, but some of the characters are in the first book, and I'm pretty sure it would have added to the reading of this book. So it's now definitely on my TBR. Here are some of my favourite quotes from One Golden Summer. Go explore, Nan told me when she gave me the camera 16 years ago. And I did. I photographed every angle of this shoreline. I tromped through the bush and documented birds and bugs, mushrooms and moss. I snapped pale green lichens, clinging to rocks and wildflowers that grew along the contours of the driveway. Columbines and lilies and asters. I'd picked bunches of them for Nan, and she'd arranged them in a striped ceramic milk jug. I shot that too. Charlie. I was expecting a thank you for my hard work and kindness. Me. Thank you. Charlie. Say it like you mean it. Me. Are you always this infuriating? Charlie. No. Charlie. Usually I'm worse. My family was big into teasing, he says. It's basically the Floric love language. I mellow. I don't speak Floric, so you'll need to translate. So now we get on to the summaries of the books, and the all-important question, are they a hit or are they a miss? So in order of how I read the books, which is the same order as I have done in the video, we have What If I Never Get Over You by Paige Toon. I have read the majority of Paige's books and I am a fan. I had high hopes, especially when I read the start of the book where Ellie and Ash meet whilst they're travelling. The initial friendship and the feeling of a holiday romance genuinely made me feel a bit giddy. Unfortunately, that didn't last though. I wasn't a big fan of how they interacted with each other, especially towards the end of the book, and I found that really let the story down. Overall, I did mostly enjoy reading the book, and I rated it 3.75 stars. But does that mean it's a hit or a miss? It's a hit. Now, on to the biggest surprise for me. First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have not read any of the author's books before, but I have heard good things about not only this book, but also Love Like Farm's series. I wasn't planning on reading this book initially for the video, but I noticed it whilst I was waiting for some of the other books to be released, and I kind of bought it on a whim. I'm so glad I did. This book was such a good surprise for me. I liked so much about it. I liked the characters, the storyline, the subplots. I actually got emotional reading it as well. Also, as someone who isn't a major fan of spice, the spice definitely got me hot under the collar without being too much. I rated the book 4.75 stars. There is a major stepping stone for me to get to a 5-star, which is whether or not I would definitely read it again at some point. That's the only thing I'm not sure of for this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it though, so you never know. So the big question is it a hit or a miss? It's an obvious hit for me. So now on to the most recent release by Lynn Painter, The Wish Switch. I should start with repeating that this book is definitely not for my age range, and it was not what I was expecting. So I really don't think it's fair for me to officially rate it, but for reference, I think it'd be round about the 2.5 stars area. I thought it was silly, I thought it was immature, obviously, but there were still some good parts, like the friendship between Emma and Jackson. I did expect more romance, but again, for the age range, it is appropriate. So the big question for me, is it a hit or a miss? For the reasons I've already stated, I have to say sadly, it's a miss for me. So the next book is Cover Story by Mhairi McFarlane. I have read most of Mhairi's books over the years, and I am a fan of her writing. But I have to say, I was pretty disappointed with this book. I thought the idea was a really good one. Fake dating, especially in the workplace, I thought that was a really solid foundation. But I wasn't a fan of either of the main characters, especially at the start. Enemies to lovers, if that's what you would classify this, is very tricky for me because I find a lot of the time authors are making excuses for the characters to dislike each other, either through miscommunication or other silly reasons, when you know that they're going to soften up over time. That was the case here, and it's basically immediate dislike of each other for no particular reason. I'm sad to say as well, I was genuinely bored at certain points reading the book. I just didn't feel like there was anything too gripping about it. There are some good points in the book, but overall I was pretty underwhelmed. I rated it at 2.75 stars. So the big question is it a hit or a miss? I think you might be able to guess the answer, unfortunately, for me, and I am sad to say it is a miss for me. And so, on to the final book of the video, One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. Carley was a new author to me, although I do have some of her books on my TBR list. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I had heard good things. If this is the standard of her other books, then I am happy to add her to my exciting authors list. There was so much to like about One Golden Summer. I liked the characters, the location, the writing. You also had a romance that you could root for. Not every romance book does. So the big question is it a hit or a miss? It is a clear hit for me. I hadn't even originally planned to read this book initially, but I'm really glad that I did. So, do you plan to add any of these books to your TBR list? Let me know down in the comments. And now here are the nods for each individual book. For the universal nods, as the genre of books was romance, we have The Hearts, we have The Toast and The French Fancy, because of what they say. You're my jam, I fancy you, you know, general romance. And we also have the jewellery. They're all hearts, so we've got the earrings, which are hearts. We have the necklace, which is a heart, and I have a thumb ring on, which is a heart. In What If I Never Get Over You, we had the leather jacket, because Ash wears one in the book, a train for the interrailing travelling, the house, because there is a big estate that Ellie works at in the book, furniture, because Ellie's parents own a shop of furniture, and the space stroke planets, as Ash is quite into that in the book. I forgot to add, I'm also wearing a flowery top, plus there are flowers in a glass, because Ellie is a gardener. In First Time Caller, we had the microphone and the headphones for the radio show, the braid, as that's how Lucy wears it at one point in the book, the same for the green dress, the car for Lucy's job as a mechanic, and the lizard, as there is one called Bartholomew mentioned in the book for one of the callers into the radio show. Then in the wish switch there was the chalkboard for school, the fours, as that's a really common theme in regards to the wishes, etc. Let's pretend this is a bus for the school bus, and the hamburger, as there's a hamburger van mentioned in the story. For cover story, the nods were the writing stuff for their jobs, so we have the paper and the pen, and the magnifying glass for the undercover work that they do. And finally, for One Golden Summer, we have these nods. The camera for Alice's job, the unicorn as they lie on a pool float that's a unicorn in the book, the boat as they use one a lot in the book, we have the seaside-y picture as the story is based around water, a lake, plus the fish scene for the same reason. We have a hammer as Charlie helps with renovating a cabin. There's a green dress because Alice wears one in the book. We have a turtle, as that is Alice's nickname that her family has given her. And finally, we have the cake and the tiara, because there's a birthday scene in the book, which is actually one of my favourites. I have a visitor. I think that is everything, but if I've forgotten any, I will edit them in later or pin them in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you are a fan of romance book reviews, I think you'd like this video here. Thanks everyone, goodbye.